And it's weird when he talks. I know he's from Scotland, but I've heard Scottish people talk, and they're way thicker. So I don't know if he was in like a specific part of Scotland, or maybe he was Americanized through James Bond, or his accent slowly slid away and it wasn't as thick.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, because I don't know where he went to school. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it could have been his education. It could have been... Because it's not their heart.
Yeah, it's like their tongue's getting swallowed back into the throat.
Welcome to A Cast with No Name. We are your hosts. I'm Jay.
And I'm Matt.
This is episode 58. This episode belongs in a museum as we discuss the 1989 action-adventure film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. But first, don't forget to visit our website, acastwithnoname.com, links to our Instagram, our YouTube, all that good shit. So you can comment there. You can comment on YouTube. Like us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Helps the show find new listeners, and thank you for listening.
So, Jay.
So, Matt.
What'd you think?
Still pretty good.
Still pretty goddamn good.
So, this is the first movie I think I remember seeing in theaters.
Oh.
If I've seen the movie in theaters before this...
So, what were you, 6?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I was 6.
Do you remember it? You actually remember it?
The thing I remember most is during the end when he chooses poorly and my mom covering my eyes before he like ages like super quickly and everything else,
right?
And dies. But that's the thing that sticks out the most. That and.
Well, as a 6-year-old, it would. It's funny you say that because I watched it with Lincoln and Liam, and when that part came up, Lincoln goes, "Daddy, I don't want to watch this anymore." I completely forgot about that. I was like, "Whoa, that's kind of gnarly." Jeez.
Scarring them young. You gotta scar them young.
I'm getting them ready for life.
Yes. So, yeah, and this is the one I think I've seen the most. Mm-hmm. When my father had bought surround sound and had it installed because
he was the third guy to have surround sound.
Yeah, probably because it was one of the few videotapes, or like it was one of the first videotapes that actually really used surround sound on a VHS cassette. And my parents had built a house when I was about 9 or 10, and so whenever he wanted to show off his sound system, he always chose the clip when they're up in the mountain or looking down at the Nazis coming through, and Sean Connery says, "What are you doing? Henry, get down." He's like, "Dad, we're well out of range," and they shoot
they shoot the tank.
Yeah, they
shoot
the tank shell, and it hits the car behind them. And he always chose that scene because in surround sound you hear it like happening right in front of you, and then you just hear it travel over.
Oh,
the
yeah,
back of the head. So that was kind of like his demo scene that he would always put in, and then we'd most of the time end up watching the rest of the movie.
Right, gotcha. And he'd stare at his friends and be like, "What'd you think?"
Yeah,
what did you think of that?
What do you think? And they're just
jealous
rubbing their head, and they're like, "Oh, this is so stupid."
It's like you're there.
Mm-hmm. So what about? So you said you watched Raiders more.
I did, yes,
than this one
for sure. We didn't own this movie, so we had to rent it.
Okay,
but I rented it plenty of times.
Yeah,
I've seen it a bunch of times, but I haven't seen it since 10 years ago. It's been about 10 years since I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the third one in the Indiana Jones trilogy, as people say, because people don't talk about the next one.
Yes.
But this came out in '89, and Spielberg pretty much made this one to apologize for Temple of Doom.
You can tell.
Yeah, he brings back Marcus, brings back Sala, and brings back the Nazis.
Yep.
And goes back to a Judeo-Christian themed artifact, and like
you can tell the cold open. It's so lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was watching a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
With the hero and like the way the villains acted.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they would act on a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, not necessarily evil, but
Right.
they're antagonists, but they're not really gonna hurt.
Kind of oafy and almost their dialogue is like, Give me the amulet, kid.
Yeah.
He's like, and they're actually letting Indy talk back to them. Like a regular villain would just like punch the kid in the face and grab it from him,
back,
throw him off the train.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I kind of liked because rewatching it, I mean, I probably hadn't seen it in probably about the same amount of time I've seen the other ones. Usually if I watch one, I end up watching all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that about those characters in the beginning to where, because I mean they probably weren't bad guys, they weren't mercenaries, but they were I mean they're kind of more or less guns for hire. There's archaeologists for hire, and to where they really didn't want to kill the kid. I mean there's a couple of scenes where like, well, someone could have died there.
Oh,
and
easy.
Like, and then there's trying to stab them, so I mean it kind of plays off, but you never really got that true sense of evil from them. They just wanted that artifact back. And
well, even the head guy starts to admire him a little bit towards the end.
gives him his hat.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
You find out where he gets his hat.
Yeah.
And you find out where he gets his scar, which is
Yeah.
an actual scar that Harrison Ford I think he got when he was
20.
20.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't even notice Harrison Ford's scar.
Really?
He's just so damn handsome. You just don't.
You just
just
get
kinda
sucked
gaze
into
into his
those
eyes.
You don't even see the chin.
Don't even see it.
Yeah, you see where he gets his hat, his whip, and his fear of snakes.
Yep.
But yeah, the scar he got when Harrison Ford, I think he was in a car accident, and he got it when he was like 20 or something like that. But
it's really well written. That whole scene.
Yeah,
it packs a bunch of info in like 5 minutes.
Oh yeah,
if that.
Yep. And River Phoenix does a pretty good job.
He's pretty good.
There was a couple of spots like his mannerisms I thought were very Harrison Ford. He's like, "Oh, what are you gonna do?" He's like, "I don't know. I'll think of something." And
yeah.
But the only issue I think I had with his character being that young, and maybe just because he was a kid, it kind of fits. I felt like he was a little too idealistic.
Oh, yeah.
And compared to who he was in Temple of Doom, he was more greed, which maybe that's just him being on his own for that long a time, being away from his father. He kind of turned into that person, so it still kind of works. But
yeah.
He just felt a little too idealistic for that age of an Indy transferring into, because the next time we see him chronologically is in Temple of Doom when he's more greed focused and all that.
Well, maybe he has some resentment towards his father, so he's like,
fuck it, I'm in for me.
Fuck these museums.
Fuck the starving village. It's mine, damn it.
It's
Fortune
mine.
and glory.
That's right. But yeah, I like the way to like you said, he's apologizing for Temple of Doom. It starts off in this lighthearted Saturday morning cartoon romp mini adventure, which I like that aspect of the movie. I like the fact that it feels like it's being told through the eyes of a child, kind of, and then the tone kind of shifts right when you see Indy on the boat, and then he's in peril for sure. They could kill him. So I thought that's a smart decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't notice that. Yeah, that it is kind of he's reliving that like through his own memory as far as his father being a mysterious figure in his life, but him looking like you could tell. The person he ended up admiring most was that architect that he ran into when he was a kid. Yep.
And the script in this movie it's pretty good, pretty tightly written. Like everything connects with the previous scene or scene, maybe not adjacent to. Like for instance, that one, he gets that cross or whatever, and then when he's on the boat, he's trying to retrieve the cross again, and you see the guy in the white, so you don't forget. It kind of remember who he is. But even when he runs into his dad's office and he's writing the diary for the Holy Grail, and they mention that 30 minutes later when what's that guy's name? Evil dude, Walter Donovan.
Yeah.
When he opens it up and shows Indy that. So there's a lot of things like that where they kind of harken back to the previous scene.
Yeah, because I think the story was by George Lucas again, and then also Menno
Mayes. Dude, I have no idea.
Mayes. They pretty much developed the story, and then Jeffrey Boehm wrote the screenplay. However, actually there was a portion of it that was somewhat ghost written. It was the person's name. I'll find it here in a second. But it was ghost written. They got a Broadway playwright to punch up the dialogue between Indiana Jones and his father, and doing that to kind of make that relationship matter a little bit more, which I feel definitely worked out for the best. Because I think that's it's the best aspect of this whole movie.
Oh, for sure.
Is that relationship. Tom Stoppard. And
where'd you learn this? Did you see it behind the scenes or something, or trivia?
Trivia.
Gotcha.
I looked it up on the internet like a
on the interwebs.
But pretty much like any normal red-blooded American, when you watch a movie, you immediately go to IMDb trivia and then just read trivia about it.
Right.
If you don't do that, you're a psychopath.
Or what's the point of IMDb trivia?
Yeah.
Why would you even bother?
I know. But he did not receive a writing credit for that.
Bastards.
Yeah, I know. But
how often do you think that happens? I'm sure it happens a ton.
Quite a bit. I think Carrie Fisher had a whole writing career just punching up scripts with.
Oh, really?
With just
sarcastic dialogue.
Yeah. Just more comedic stuff.
Yeah.
And I think she specialized in dialogue was what her main thing was. But I think mainly all throughout the 90s, she had quite a few films. Steven Spielberg would bring her on, and a lot of. She just knew a lot of people growing up in the industry and everything because her parents were in the industry. So
yeah.
But yeah, so I imagine it happens quite a bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. How would you feel like a writer though, written by, and then of all these people that helped you out?
Yeah,
I don't know how I'd feel about that.
So, but they might be used to it because I'm not too sure of the rules behind it, because I think you have to write a certain amount to be given a credit. I would imagine.
Sure.
Because some people end up fixing a script or rewriting a script on set without getting credit because they didn't rewrite enough of it, and it might be based on a percentage or something like that. So I'm sure it's something that they I would imagine are used to, and like anything else, as long as they get paid, they probably don't care, because eventually it's going to get out anyways that they did that, because it's pretty small. The Hollywood is a pretty small community, and as soon as someone approached Spielberg and said, the parts between the father and son were great. Oh yeah, well, we hired
what's his face?
Yeah, what's his name? What's his nut?
To punch it up. Oh really?
Punch it up. Oh yeah. That's weird.
Cool. So yeah, so after we're introduced to Indy as a young kid, what do you think of the rest of the movie? In comparison to the tones of Raiders and Temple of Doom,
it was definitely more comedic.
Oh yeah, I definitely noticed the difference
compared to the other two, and I would say it started drifting away. People didn't feel as sweaty in this one.
Yeah,
they were still getting dirty and everything else. And I don't know if it's just because the film stock had changed so much in the past 6 years since Temple of Doom. But Temple of Doom was notably darker, but definitely between 81 and 89, I'm sure film stock, film quality advanced a bit, because this movie looks like it could have been shot in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it felt a little bit cleaner. But the remaining of the story, it felt more treasure hunty, felt more adventurous than I think Temple of Doom definitely did.
Yep.
But it did not feel as serious as Raiders, but it still had stakes. It still had great stunts. Still
definitely
had.
Oh yeah. That tank scene's awesome.
Oh, the tank scene was
great.
Great. Even just the motorcycle chase.
That was great.
And there's quite a few scenes in there. And the boat scene in Venice.
Yeah.
But it's not as action packed as Temple of Doom and Raiders. But it feels like a more complete movie, because it hits those emotional beats with the father-son story.
Yes. It's very good. Yeah, oh man. I noticed the tone, and I don't know what I like more in terms of the lighthearted adventure that this is versus like the more seriousness of Raiders. And I guess it depends on what kind of mood I'm in.
Yeah, I think this has a nice balance, because you could go too lighthearted, which we'll talk about next week, where it just turns into a fucking cartoon.
Yeah,
and nothing means anything. But I mean, I don't know. But I discovered in this movie that I am a horrible critic because I get lost in stories that interest me so easily. Like, even when we watch something for the podcast, I'm just like, I just get sucked in, and then I look down like, oh shit, I got 3 notes that I wrote down because I'm sucked into the story, or like I don't want to spend too much time writing because I just want to watch the movie.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's a trademark of a good movie, then, right?
Yeah, you just get lost in it.
Yeah.
It's the pieces of shit that you can really kind of dive into and sink your teeth into the amount of tapestry of bullshit that there is.
Yeah. But man, is Sean Connery so good?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's the best.
Well, you got the cold open, continuing with the James Bond theme. You get actual James Bond playing the father.
Yeah.
And you get a new Bond girl, Indy
What'd you think of her, by the way? Did she step up from Willie?
Yeah.
Yeah. You could tell.
Yeah. And I think she did a great job in this because, I mean, she plays a villain, but at the same time, like you still feel empathy for her. You still end up caring about her when she goes off into the abyss or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably just because, I mean, she's very similarly like-minded to Indiana. But I thought I think she's great.
Yeah. The only criticism I would have, and that's just because they only have 2 hours to tell a story. Back when movies were only 2 hours, you know, remember those days?
Yeah.
When 2 hours was the max. It felt a little rushed. Their whole relationship. Which I get because he wanted to focus more on the relationship between him and his dad because that's where the meat of it is. But I felt that like they're like towards the end when she's about to reach for the Grail and Indy's saving her, I'm like, would he really put that much effort into it? I don't know. I don't buy it all that much, but I get it. You know.
Yeah, probably not. And I don't think it was more of a love thing. I think it was just more of a lust relationship.
Yeah.
Which I could totally buy because they're just like.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Yeah.
But it's like Indy. She double-crossed you.
Yeah.
Slept with your dad. Basically almost killed you. Let you to die. Right? And you're going to... Why are you saving her again? Just because you want a bone? Is that what it is?
This is...
Come on, bro.
The power of boners is strong.
Oh, my guess.
And it can conquer all.
It sure can. Jeez. But that would be my only criticism.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me.
Yeah. So something that I enjoyed about this was the difference in personality between his father and Indiana, to where you have his father's more of studious,
academic,
and strict, more of a disciplinarian, and which is funny because they gave him a nickname. I forget what they called him in the movie. It was like Professor something or another, but it was like he was a hard ass to his students and very strict. And with his son, he just let him do whatever he want. He's like, "Did I ever tell you to brush your teeth, go to bed?" I was like, "You're strict with your students, but not with your child." That's great.
Yeah.
But I like that aspect to where Indy is obviously the more resourceful, physical of the two, but they didn't. I wrote this down. Indy has more action. He's obviously more action oriented, but it doesn't. Not so much that it removes the usefulness of the father, and because Henry Jones Sr. is still able to teach him lessons and still has some authority over him, to where Indy can do all these amazing things and then still slap Indy in the face when he says the Lord's name in vain and everything else, and like Indy will just cower like most people will if their parents still yell at him no matter how old they are. They're always going to be okay.
or when he does something very dangerous that turns out to work in the benefit of both of them, and then his dad just staring at him like, "What the hell were you thinking?"
Yeah.
And he looks at him like, "What'd you think of that?"
Yeah.
And he's just like,
Yeah, he's
"That
like so
stuff's
proud,
dumb."
and he's just like, "You're proud of yourself? Like you're happy about that?"
It's great.
He's killing people like yeah. When he blows people away with the machine gun, she's like,
Look what you did.
yeah, "This is intolerable."
That's good. And I like how they used to write characters where they didn't have to spell everything out when they're, because there's tension between the two, but they don't map out every detail of every gripe or every.
Yeah, they're not eloquent
right.
in their exposition of
Right.
bitching.
They just know that, and he even mentions it like, and it got to Mom because you weren't in our lives all that much. You were more into the Grail.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't have to dive deeper into that. You knew that, oh, okay, I get it. It had to do something with the relationship between his mom and his dad, and drove his mom away or something.
Yeah, and yeah, because I think she was sick, and she had like died suddenly or something like that. And but yeah, I like the scene when they're on the zeppelin, and they're sitting down. He's like, "You remember the last time we had a cold drink or a quiet drink?"
Quiet drink, yeah.
And he's like, "I had a milkshake." And like, of course, his father's like still in his diary, and he's like,
Nothing's
he's like,
changed.
"Oh yeah, what did we talk about?" He's like, "That's the thing, we never talked."
Yeah.
And then he kind of like goes into it a little bit, and he's like, "It was a lonely time, blah blah blah." He's like, "What? All right, we're here now. What do you want to talk about?" And he's like, nothing comes to mind. He's like, "Then what are you complaining about?" And to where it's nice because like, yeah, at the time he probably wanted to say something and talk, but them both realizing that, like, I mean, this is what we have in common. This is probably what we would talk about if anything, and just that aspect of it, and kind of deals with it, and then kind of puts it to bed. But.
Yeah. And I like that. Again, they don't dive into the history of the mom, but because Indy has the like the studiousness of his father, but you could tell he would get the adventurous side of his personality probably from his mom.
Yeah,
they don't say that, but because you begin to wonder why is Indy like that, and then you kind of understand.
Yeah,
you kind of fill in the gaps. Oh, the writer lets the audience come to the realization without spelling it out. Remember those days, Jay, when you didn't have to spell everything out?
They would infer things, and you could use just context of a film to come to your own conclusions.
Yeah.
And let your mind fill in the rest of the blanks.
Yeah. But back to the comedic tone,
yes.
I feel like Brody was definitely way more comedic than he was in Raiders, for sure.
And the editing definitely helped out with that. When he's like, "Oh, he's got a 2-day head start. He knows 7 languages, and he'll blend in, disappear." And then it just cuts in. Excuse me, anyone in this town speak English?
Can anyone understand what I'm saying?
Which was great. Sad thing is, he sadly died shortly after this movie came out. This was his... Yeah, I think this was his last film.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, they brought him back. They brought back Sala, and which I enjoyed him.
I did too. I don't think he had a lot to do, though.
He didn't. I mean, he was there for...
I feel like he was in the movie for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, moral support. But, I mean, I think it would have... I think he served his purpose. I mean, he was kind of a comedic presence, and he was there to kind of help Marcus or try and find Marcus, but there for a little bit of support. Granted, yeah, he didn't have much to do even in the action scenes, but he had a couple nice.
Yeah.
Nice
I get the reason why he was in it too. He did have a purpose.
But yeah. So overall, like, yeah, he wasn't in it that much. Which, but in no, I mean, disrespect to him or his character or anything. But I think it's like the right amount of time for that story because obviously the two key elements is Indy and his father.
Yeah, and I do got to say though, I think of the three, I mean Walter Donovan's a decent villain, but he was my least favorite of the villains that were in Raiders and Temple of Doom. He's still good, but I prefer. Crap, I already forgot. Was it Solomon or Rolomon?
Yeah. Roly-poly.
Roly-poly.
Roly-poly
anyway,
from Temple
scary
of Doom.
dude. He's
Yep,
my favorite
scary
villain. And then Belloc.
Yeah. And I think probably because Walter Donovan, he's just not. I mean, he stays in line with the villain who's in it, but not for the politics, not for whatever country he's siding with. It's obviously his own.
He's just a megalomaniac.
Yeah, he wants it for his own purposes.
Yeah,
and it's just working with the Nazis is the easiest way he thinks he can achieve his goal.
Yeah.
Same thing with Allison Duty to an extent. The only real like hardcore Nazi I feel like is was it Vogel?
Vogel, yes.
And who has a great look.
He does have a great look. Isn't he like aggressively German?
Yeah. This is how we say goodbye in Austria. This is how we say goodbye in Germany.
Yeah. I like the Austrian way better.
Yeah, but so do I. But yeah, Michael Byrne played Vogel, and Julian Glover played Walter Donovan, both of which were in Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember Julian Glover. I don't remember.
So
he played, like,
Julian
R2-D2?
Glover was in a AT-AT or AT-AT on Hoth, and then Vogel. I think he was like a small.
He's a stormtrooper.
No, he was an officer of the Empire, but he had a smaller role than what Julian Glover did. But but yeah, so the movie starts off in 1912.
Yeah, in Utah.
Yep, and then later in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it's determined that Indy was born in 1899.
So he's supposed to be 13.
13. That is.
It's a very
that advanced 13.
It's very advanced.
River Phoenix, probably 22 at the time, playing a 13-year-old. Although, to be honest, I think back then they didn't know when he was born.
Probably not. They were like, yeah, whatever. No one's gonna connect the dots. It doesn't matter.
So, but this one, the main story takes place in 1938, which is 1 year after. No. So
2 years after, right?
2 years. So 2 years after Temple of Doom, 1 year. 2 years after Jesus Raiders.
Whoa, math's
2
hard.
years.
You need to calm down.
Shh.
Woo.
2 years.
You should write it down and go get a pencil.
2 years after the Raiders.
Get your phone out.
And, but yeah, so that way they could still use the Nazis.
Yep. And it makes sense before World War II breaks out.
Yes.
Yes.
Before
all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
You don't have time to run around chasing old relics,
artifacts, and everything else. Do you have any issues with this movie?
I would say, like I already talked about my criticisms of the femme fatale and that relationship, but not really. No, it's not really a criticism though either. Like when they get to the it's not a temple. I will call it a temple. When they go to the place where the Holy Grail's at, and we finally get some booby traps.
Yeah,
I'm like, I remember that being longer, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's only like it's really fast, and I wanted it to be longer. So maybe that's selfish.
Yeah,
but it felt short. But they were, and even the second trap where he's like the word of God, it didn't seem like it was like very far. I felt like he could have like broad jumped it. So he was doing a lot of sidestepping. I'm like, couldn't you just like get a ladder and just?
I want to know the technology they used.
Yeah,
for making these booby traps, because when he falls through the J and he's hanging, you see some supports, but none of them are connecting the other squares.
That's very true.
And I'm like, well, the power of God is holding it up, which is fine. But I want to know how the other booby traps are made. Like in Raiders, like you had you put your hand in front of a light, a piece of sunlight, and a dart would shoot out. And I was actually talking about it with a buddy of mine this morning. He's like, yeah, what happens if the sun sets?
Uh-oh.
And then you just got darts just flying fucking everywhere. Like, do things. But no, great craftsmanship on the booby traps. I have one thing in there. I thought the first booby trap is bullshit. God hates people. Here's the reason. So the penitent man is humble. So the penitent man will pass.
Sure.
Is the first thing. And so he's like, the penitent man, and he's like, oh, kneel. And then after which, then the penitent man has to do a somersault, which isn't even in the clues.
That's
so it's
very
like,
true.
oh, you kneel, and now we're going to disembowel you because fuck you.
Right. That's very true.
So a little bit of a cop-out. Like, but
it is a little bit.
They probably needed to add something there because they probably, they probably tested or rehearsed something to where, kneel, shoom. I guess that was pretty easy. Let's add something else so he's got to, like, duck and roll.
He's got to do
something
else. Yeah. That's true.
But the sidewalk, the invisible bridge, I really liked.
Yeah, it's cool.
I thought it was. I always was fascinated how it looked completely invisible, and then and obviously just a green walkway that they used, and then there's like a piece of it that looked computer generated or just like a motion matte painting to where he was just kind of, and I think it was probably just computer texture over it, but to where it like looks super, super thin, and then when he finally walks across it, it just looks like a giant bridge from the perspective of what actually is there. But I was just interested how they just evolved those shots, or they evolved the look of the bridge across multiple shots for that.
Yeah. So to add on to your question there, jeez, what is going on?
Oh.
Gross.
Save the little chunks for me.
Oh, yummy. I would say the overall fault in the movie is that it feels like, especially at the end when they're riding off and we named Indy the dog. And a lot of subsequent moments up to that point throughout the movie, it felt like just a fan service movie. Like, all right, we're going to add these moments because that's what the fans want. Maybe not necessarily, it's not organic to the story, but we're going to put these in here because it's more lighthearted. We're making up for what we did with Temple of Doom, and we're going to give the fans what they want. But it's not bad because it's still, I enjoy that. Mm-hmm. If it's what the fans want, there's a reason why they want it. It's because it's good stuff. It's not really a fault, but this movie adds something to it that the other ones didn't have, which is those nice sentimental moments, like the moment with Indy and his dad when he thought Indy fell off the cliff, and then of course it's ramped up because Sean Connery's doing the acting. Yeah. I mean, he's really, really good. Mm-hmm. Like, and they added that into it, which there wasn't those heart-to-heart moments in Raiders and Temple of Doom.
Yeah, no, it was just non-stop action.
Yeah,
and I think, I don't know, because I've been trying to understand. Obviously, this is my favorite one out of all of them, and I don't. And it's part of the reason why I say I'm a shit critic, because I couldn't really look at this critically, other than the fact that I was like, yeah, fuck it, I like it. But one thing I noticed is, like, it's weird that this is my favorite one because this has, I feel like, no iconic Indy moments. Like, because when you think of Indiana Jones, you think of you call him Dr. Jones, or you think of him running after the boulder, or running
away from the boulder.
You think of him
shooting the guy in the street.
Yeah, shooting the guy in the street, cutting the bridge. You think him putting the staff in there to find where the Well of Souls is, and to where there's not many. There's no iconic Indy moments in this. Like, the only thing I can really think of is You've Chosen Wisely, like that scene, and that really didn't even have anything to do with Indy.
Yeah.
But I mean, he gets a couple of good action scenes in this. But I did find that funny that I enjoy this the most. But it's iconically, when people think of Indiana Jones, it's like the least Indiana Jones movie of the three that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I agree. It's the most comedic movie too, I think. I mean,
well,
Temple of Doom's, it's got, because it's short round, but just the it's not even, but it's more reactionary comedy. It's not like, or situational comedy. Mm-hmm. It's not dialogue comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not dialogue, because I mean, there's a bit in there when he goes to rescue his father, when they're having a conversation. It's like he hits him over the head with the vase. And he's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, oh, thank God. And like the entire time, Sean Connery's talking about the vase that he's looking at instead of conversing with his son.
Yeah.
So it does a couple of those, like who's on first bits or whatever, a little bit.
Man, that Sean Connery's so good in it.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. And
he's such a good actor.
Yeah. I like how he is bumbling and not effective in action scenes, but I mean, he has the bird scene. He has a couple nice scenes to where you could see his strength of character. And like one of my favorite lines in the movie is when Vogel's down there and he's like slapping me. He's like, "Why'd you come back for the diary? What does the book tell you that it's not telling me?" And he keeps slapping him, and then he like grabs his hand. He's like, "It tells me that morons like yourself should read books instead of burning them."
What tells me reading books instead of burning them. And it's weird when he talks. I know he's from Scotland, but I've heard Scottish people talk, and they're way thicker. So I don't know if he was in like a specific part of Scotland, or maybe he was Americanized through James Bond, or his accent slowly slid away and it wasn't as thick.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, because I don't know where he went to school. So, I mean, it could have been his education. It could have been because it's not hard.
Yeah, it's like their tongue's getting swallowed back into the throat. Yeah. But, I mean, that elevates the movie for me. It's a lot more lighthearted, and it's got cheesy moments in there for sure, but it works well with the tone of the movie. So it's like, all right, what do you want? Do you want the dark tone of Temple of Doom? Do you want like sort of the more adventurous tone with Raiders, or do you want like the cheesy, sentimental adventure / comedy of Last Crusade?
Yeah, which I think, I mean, as your main character gets older, you would have to find new things to put into the movie to make it as entertaining, because they would get to a point where you can't just have nonstop adventure, because then you're like, well, like your age is a factor. Like it starts to become unbelievable. And I think breaking up the action, especially with Sean Connery being in tow, is at least not him as a person, but his character, him being an older person, to where Indy can't it gives him a reason to not be gun ho all the time, because he come on, Dad. That whole thing.
Another thing I thought of watching the movie, maybe it's a flaw, but whatever. Like when the Brotherhood, were they in Rome or Florence?
Yeah.
The Brotherhood that's protecting the secret of the Grail. So they're like chasing each other. Indy even kills a couple of them. The guy's like, "I'm ready to die. Are you ready to die?" And then,
let me tell you who I am.
Let me tell you who I am. And, let me off at this dock here, even though I just tried to kill you. And if you let me go, I might still try to kill you.
Yeah.
So
I'll find you.
Exactly. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But you needed an action scene, and there was an excuse to do an action. And that action scene is pretty dope.
And it kind of brings him up again later on. He and his rest of his guys ambush the Nazis in the canyon.
Which that scene with the propeller, I don't know how they did that. Like, I don't know if they could just turn off the propeller like at a whim. It seemed really coordinated, like when it's like chomping up the boat, and like you can tell it's Harrison Ford and the other actor. So I don't know if
it's a good
the dude on the button. He's like Clark Griswold, with the.
It's a good thing they didn't have phones back then, because they'd just be like, Bob. Oh,
no!
Fuck.
Harrison's forehead head just flies off. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see how that scene was made, because it was good. Looked good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the action scenes look great.
There's like weight to it. Like when you digitize that stuff, it looks so bad.
Yeah.
So when you do it practically, it's like, all right.
You can
kind of into this.
Easily tell.
Yeah.
And even because, I mean, they're on top of a tank, which they could do green screen if they need to, which I'm sure some parts possibly they did. There's a couple of shots in the movie where it's like, green screen, which I imagine were probably like pickup shots.
Yeah.
That they had to put in there. Like when probably the only iconic Indy moment was when Harrison Ford punches Vogel, throws him over the zeppelin.
Oh yeah,
and no ticket, and
he's looking up and
but he like looks up and gives him a reason, lets the audience know, okay, this guy's still alive. But yeah, horrible green screen. But no, everything looked really good on top of it, and I'm sure it was a lot of work and planning that went into those scenes, but today's day and age, it's like those are small stunts, but they are, or smaller action scenes, but they're done practically, so it looks better. But also, I think the major problem is, which we'll talk about next week, why some of those don't work, is you care about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the acting is just a lot better when they're doing things practically, because they have something to play off of, instead of just, see, we're going to have this big thing, it's going to be twirling around, and to where if you get a bunch of people in the shot, you'll get some people just looking at things that aren't even there. It's just, it takes you out of it, and it's hard to do. And I get movie safety things have changed and all that, but it's still,
doesn't mean they look
still better. Yeah. Indy hanging from the tank.
Yeah. That's really, man, that stuff is so good.
It's a simple thing. Like his bag is caught in a gun, and they're going to run him into a wall. And he's like,
yeah.
And
you can feel the weight of it.
Yeah.
And what did you think of the face melting versus the rapid aging of Donovan? What did you like more?
I like the rapid aging of Donovan.
It's pretty
because, cool. One, because they didn't have to throw flames in to appease the MPAA. But I just think it fit really well for that scene. That's actually also one of the first, I think it was like digital. Hold on. It was like, okay, so the way they did that was the first complete digital composite shot in Hollywood history. So what they did was Glover was filmed in several separate stages of the aging process, and then they just kind of digitally morphed them together a little bit, and then translated it back to film to make it look like all one shot. So it was kind of like what they do with stop motion, which is what they did with, I guess in Raiders they did wax. It was like dental shit that they melted, and they just spit up the film. This one, so stop motion, you take one picture and you take 30 pictures for a fluid animation, or you could do 15 in a second, whatever. But every 15 to 30 pictures is 1 second of film. And then you just move it a little bit each time, then you get stop motion. But so it looks like they kind of did that, but just with prosthetics on his face, and they would just take a picture, or shoot maybe a couple of frames or something, and then just kind of use that
merge
footage.
It all.
Yeah, dissolve it or
look good.
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with you. I like that more than the face melting stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's more refined, but I mean it's like almost a decade of technology that they had on their hands.
Yeah, I know that's true too.
Back then.
What a final test though! It's so smart. Instead of just, there's the cup.
Oh, you found it.
You found it. Damn. That easy.
Yep.
Yeah, that was cool. Good. Good final test.
But Indy and his father should be immortal. I've heard that argument. It was pretty much before Kingdom.
Well, they didn't specify how often you had to drink from the cup.
True, but they also, there was a line in there. It said, "Now you must not take the cup beyond the seal."
Yeah,
that is the price, and it is the price and something or sacrifice for immortality. So I think that also went with your life, to where once you cross the seal, you're no longer immortal.
That makes sense. Like you can be immortal, but you're gonna be in this cave.
You gotta fucking stay here.
Yeah.
with the invisible.
Glad
bridge.
You came.
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yeah. Hope you had fun.
Yeah. What a bummer.
So.
Well, we talked about this last time, so I liked Raiders. I thought that Raiders was my favorite one of these.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you liked Raiders more than Temple of Doom.
Barely. Yeah, it's like one rung up the ladder. So, yeah, I think I said Raiders' legs is dangling in front of Temple of Doom.
So where would you put? I think you already said it. But
It's
your favorite one.
Yeah, it's the favorite one.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's probably just because this is the one I saw the most when I was a kid.
Sure.
And but it's more fun. It's more. I feel like it's more of a complete movie than Raiders. I like Indy's character. I don't know. I want to say I'm more attracted to Indy's character in Raiders than I am in Crusade. No homo. More of like he's more. He's more like swashbuckling in Raiders, but I like the dynamic between Harrison Ford and Sean Connery.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's aspects of Raiders that I do like a little bit better than Crusade, but overall, I think Crusade. I feel like it's a better movie. It's comedic, but it has the emotional beats that work, and the stunts are great, and they still mean something, and they. It's not so funny that it takes away from the seriousness of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, number one for sure. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely changed my mind. This is my favorite one. Yeah, I just like it more.
Yeah,
it's just more fun.
Well, let me tell you why to hate it. So they're in the hotel in Venice.
Uh-huh.
I think they're in Walter Donovan's apartment because they said that he could use my apartment. Is that you're supposed
Florence.
Yeah, Florence. And so they're in the apartment, and Harrison Ford's in a robe and talking to Marcus.
Uh-huh.
And then he goes to talk to, hot Nazi chick. That's her character. Elsa. And he walks into her room, and her room's ransacked.
Yeah.
And then she was listening to the radio, and then he walks into his room, and his room's ransacked. And I'm like, you just got out of the shower. Your hair is wet. At what point, how long were you talking to Marcus that you couldn't hear people destroying your apartment room or wherever you were staying at? Like that was like the one thing. And he even made a comment. He's like, oh, she ransacked her own room. I fell for it. And I'm like, the fuck did you not even hear it in the first place? Like, what were you doing to where... And because he couldn't have been in the shower. No. And then come out because he would have had to pass through his room.
Yep. Well, if Elsa's in her bathroom listening to music, was that it? Oh, she couldn't hear it getting ransacked because she had the music on?
Well, sure, that I could see is believable, but
okay.
Because she was in the shower the whole time.
Oh.
Harrison Ford had left the shower, so while he was talking with Marcus,
they ransacked
everything, and it's like, what was he doing? I call bullshit.
You're right. Plot hole.
It's number 4 for me.
Well, there's another fuck up when Indy's on the tank and it's like blown to shit on one end and it's all spiraled up and he's like,
yeah.
And then they turn, he avoids being crushed to death, and then he's just hopping back up again. Like he somehow like wiggled his way around the and then hopped up. I'm like, I thought he was caught, and that doesn't make... Well, whatever. It's fun.
It's all right.
Yeah, whatever. Physics don't apply. No big deal. But yeah, I would say I just like this more because it's more fun.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that I think Raiders has a better script, and Karen Allen is by far, in a way, way better. That relationship's really good. That I enjoy that. The stakes are still there. I mean... So you could argue that maybe it's a better script, maybe it's a better made film, but Last Crusade is by far more fun than Raiders is.
I agree. Yep. It's very enjoyable.
It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Good.
Yeah.
Anything else on Last Crusade?
No, I'm good.
All right.
I recommend it. Go watch it.
I recommend it too.
Yes.
It is good. Join us next time. as we swing from vines and discuss Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. As always, you can comment on our episodes at acastwithnoname.com or on our YouTube channel, YouTube/@acastwithnoname. And all that. Thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Till next time, Jay.
Till next time.